With the National Hockey League season less than 2 weeks away for the Carolina Hurricanes, they clearly got some training camp decisions to make. The Canes brought in extra PTOs this year. They had a situation on September 29th when they had 2 exhibition games in Florida on the same day. So, extra players brought in, they'll have to make a decision what happens with them. Secondly, the Canes, of course, are without an American Hockey League affiliate this year. Chicago Wolves decided to move on from the Hurricanes, and the Canes were unable to get a deal done with any other team prior to the season. What's that going to mean? And finally, lots of competition on the blue line. The Canes are very, very deep on the defensive core. Are some of those players going to be leaving? If so, who? Let's get started. So the PTO situation for the Hurricanes is an interesting one. They did bring in a lot of PTOs. Most of them, I think, are going to be moving on. I can't see them as part of the Hurricanes, and I did a previous episode to talk about that. But the 2 guys that I think that are still in the mix are Aston-Reese and Kiefer Bellows. Aston-Reese is a guy that came into the league with a lot of ballyhoo. He was a highly regarded collegian. He had been a Hobey Baker finalist, had been a first All-Star in Hockey East, and really was a sought-after player when he was signed by Pittsburgh. But it hasn't gone all that great for him, and in fact, in recent years, Aston-Reese has struggled with injuries. Now, last year, he was able to get an opportunity with the Maple Leafs, signing out of a PTO in training camp, and actually had a pretty good year. 77 games, he scored 10 goals. But more importantly, he played the kind of game the Canes really appreciate with Aston-Reese. He's a hard worker. He gets in on the forecheck. He likes to make something in the offensive zone. He'll get in on the boards. He likes to lay the body on. He likes to make something happen. And he's very strong on the defensive side as well. He can also play both center and the wing, which makes him very versatile for the Hurricanes. So he's definitely a player of interest. They actually signed him later as a PTO, and I think it was because of their interest in Aston-Reese as a possible player for them this year. The other one's Kiefer Bellows. Now, Bellows was drafted in the first round by the New York Islanders, and the book on Bellows was, this guy plays hard, but he can really score. He had a great shot. He was a guy that could get in and really make something happen offensively. And of course, with a great pedigree, his dad was Brian Bellows, who had played with the Minnesota North Stars. You really thought there was something there. The Islanders gave him lots of opportunity, but he has not been able to really make that happen. In fact, last year, Bellows was put on waivers by the Islanders and was claimed by the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers were hoping that they could do something with Bellows and he could bring some offense to the lineup. They really were looking for something from him. Unfortunately, that was not going to be the case. And he basically was moved out. He was put on waivers twice and was not re-signed this year when the Flyers had an opportunity to do so. So he became available, and the Canes decided to bring him in on a PTO, and I think their idea was, they've looked at a lot of these first-rounders that have not been successful in the past, and they thought, man, he's got a great pedigree, he's a guy that really, has potential. Let's see what he can do. So far, I don't think he's distinguished himself all that much. He did score a goal in one of the games, but I don't think he has, and Aston-Reese as well has not necessarily distinguished himself. Still a battle going on. I think one of them has an opportunity with the Hurricanes, and we'll see how that plays out. Of course, there is a wild card in this. Don Waddell was talking earlier in the summer that, there may be some players available as we head into the season. And he was thinking on waiver opportunities, of course, and he was also thinking potential deals. And the idea behind that was that a lot of teams are still battling with the cap. Trying to get down to that cap point is tough for many of them. And you're seeing some very interesting players hitting the waiver wire these days. And I think it's totally because of that. Now, could the Canes see a forward that really interests them? I'm not sure. But I do believe this. If somebody pops up that they're interested in, they'll make a move. And that could further make the competition very interesting for that final forward spot, which I think is available right now in the Canes. So, lots to happen with the PTOs. I think the rest of the PTOs are gone. Somebody like Nathan Beaulieu could have been signed to a two-way deal and put in the American Hockey League, but I don't think that's going to happen as a result of the Canes not having an affiliate this year. And speaking of an AHL affiliate, of course, the Canes don't have one. And that's the problem they're wrestling with right now. A number of players from last year are looking for a home. Of course, there were several players who played with the Chicago Wolves last year, and unfortunately the Wolves decided that they would terminate the agreement with the Hurricanes. This leaves the Canes in a little bit of a lurch. So where are these players going to go and what's going to happen? You know, there's a number of them that should continue to work on their game in the American Hockey League. Of course, you've got folks like Blake Murray and Aston-Reese and Ronan Seeley and Griffin Mendel. All of these guys should definitely be there. I think also you want to talk about Ryan Suzuki. Suzuki, probably the best of the crew out of the American League side last year. He's a guy that, for me, has really shown something in the camp. You know, he's struggled with injuries the last few years. You know, a very solid first-round pick for the Canes. They thought a lot about him. Of course, his brother Nick is carving out a great career with the Montreal Canadiens. And some folks felt Ryan had more skill than Nick. So it's interesting. He has just not been able to put it all together so far, and the Canes will have to, you know, continue to work with him to get his full 200-foot game in play. He's got incredible offensive skill. He showed that in the rookie showcase. He's also showing that in the Canes camp. And I really like Suzuki, but, you know, he's also deep on the depth chart. You've got Jack Drury, who looks like a lock at the fourth-line center spot, and right behind him is Vasily Ponomarov. Ponomarov has looked great for me, and I think he's ready. The challenge he's had, of course, is he's missed training camp, and we don't know when he's going to return. So he's a little bit behind as well. But those two guys, I think, are ahead of Suzuki on the depth chart, so Ryan's got some work to do. Clearly an offensive player that can get it done, needs to tidy up his defensive side a little bit and put a little bit more emphasis on playing a full 60 minutes, but I think he's a guy that still has potential. The rest of the crew, I just don't see them as necessarily potential Hurricanes, but they definitely can carve out a future in the professional ranks. Three newcomers to the pros that are very interesting to me. You know, the Canes have been drafting some excellent players and also signing them. If you look at Dominic Fensore as a good example, Fensore just comes out of a great career in the college ranks in the U.S. He was an All-American. He was a Hobey Baker finalist. He was really a star player the last couple of years and looking for his opportunity in the pros. He's looked great at the rookie showcase. He's looked great in the Canes camp. Everything he does out there just exudes confidence. He just commands the play when he's on the ice. Not a big player, and that's the biggest challenge for Fensore. And he's going to have to be a player that's sharp in his own zone and defensively smart. And I think he'll be working on that part of his game. But offensively, he's outstanding and reminds me a lot of Tony DeAngelo in the way he controls the puck when he's on the ice. So Fensore, for sure, is going to be looking for a spot in the American Hockey League. Now, what about Yanni Peretz? Peretz came in as a very significant signing for the Hurricanes out of Quinnipiac. They were the NCAA champions last year, and of course that was the team that Skylar Brind'Amour played for. But Peretz himself has carved out a phenomenal college career. His numbers are just incredible. And he's looked sharp in both the rookie showcase and playing for the Canes in the games that he's been in. I think he's a guy that definitely is in the future of the Canes and continues to build their goaltending opportunity. I talked about this previously in the rookie showcase piece I did. Both he and Jakob Vondras, to me, are potential Canes down the road for sure. And then wrapping it up on the youngster side is going to be Justin Robidoux. Justin Robidoux, of course, I had mentioned earlier that he's got a great pedigree. Robidoux is just a buzzsaw on the ice. He's not a big player, but he's fast. He's on the puck. He likes to get where the action is. He's really in the play all the time, and that's the one thing I've noticed when I've watched him in the rookie showcase and certainly in the Canes exhibition games. He's where the action is, and he really likes to get the puck and make something happen. I'm really impressed with Robidoux, and he's going to have a home this year to continue to grow with the Hurricanes. I think the challenge the Canes have in this situation is that they're not going to have their own coaches this year, and they're not going to have an ability to school these players on the Canes system. That's not the best situation. So in the past, when they would come up to play for the Canes, if they were needed in a call-up situation, of course, they already knew the system. So it was easy for them to jump in and play immediately. I think that situation's a little bit different this year. Not sure how that plays out. But clearly the Canes have got to get busy and get organized on an AHL affiliate for next year, and I'm sure they're working on that right now. So a lot of guys trying to find a home, not sure where they're going to go, but clearly there's some work to be done to get those folks set up for this season. One other player out of Chicago, interesting, we're going to have to see where he goes, is Anthony Honka. Honka came over to North America last year for the first time, played with the Wolves. I thought played well. He's a skilled player. He's a cerebral player on the ice. He's not a big player, but he plays smart. And I think he's a player that the Canes still have a lot of interest in. So what's going to happen with Anthony this year? He could head back to Finland and play with the club team he played for 2 years ago, and that's JIP in the Liga. That's possible. And I think that's probably most likely. But if they can find him a home in North America, that's also a distinct possibility. So all those guys are clearly looking for a home this year. And the other one, of course, I did mention Vasily Ponomarov. He might have gone to an affiliate of the Hurricanes at the start of the season, but since they don't have one, I don't expect that's going to happen. Not sure where Vasily goes. He should be with the Hurricanes. He should be on the roster. But that's all got to be sorted out. And clearly he's got to get himself back into top shape so he can step into the lineup. But he's another question mark. And again, not having an affiliate in the American League, not making the best situation for Ponomarov. One other guy I wanted to mention specifically out of camp, who actually will be going back to Europe, is Felix Unger-Sorum. Felix Unger-Sorum has definitely caught the attention of Rod Brind'Amour. He's definitely been a player that has looked sharp whenever he's been out there in the games. I watched him in the showcase, the rookie showcase. He impressed the heck out of me. He's a guy that plays smart. He plays big. You know, he just turned 18 before the rookie showcase, so he's a very young player coming over. But he's a cerebral player. He doesn't mind getting into the mix. He likes to take the puck into the dirty areas. He's got confidence. He'll work on the boards. He's a player that showed an awful lot in that rookie showcase series, and also, of course, in the exhibition games that I've seen him with the Hurricanes. I think he's definitely got a future here. And of course, Brind'Amour, feeling the same way, as said he wants to keep him a little bit longer and take a look and see what the future might hold for Unger-Sorum. I think he's still got some work to do. I think he'll definitely head back to Sweden this year. Of course, he played in Sweden last year, and I think he's a player that can get something done. He'll be back with Leksand. So all of that going forward with Unger-Sorum, and we'll see how that plays out. But he's definitely a player that's caught the attention of Brind'Amour and the rest of the coaching staff. So he's an exciting future player for the Hurricanes for sure. And one other player that will be heading to Europe shortly, of course, is Alexei Hemesalmi. He's looked good as well. Very cerebral defenseman, very smart. He had some great success in some of the international junior and underage tournaments. He's a guy that has a lot of potential. And again, in the rookie showcase, looked good. He'll be heading back to Finland for this season as well. So lots of question on what happens with the AHLers. We'll see some movement of players, I think, in the next couple of days, heading back to Europe and so on, and that's going to be kind of exciting to see. One other thing I wanted to talk about was, of course, the logjam on the blue line for the Hurricanes, and this is an interesting situation. Recently, The Athletic did an article about top defense corps, and of course, the Canes were right at the top of the list with Colorado. Those two are outstanding. And the Canes had a great defense last year. If you kind of watched closely, you saw just how deep our defense was. Obviously, adding two super defensemen to that crew this year and not losing a lot means you're going to have quite a defense. The Canes dipped into the free agent market, which is unusual for them, and came up with the top free agent, arguably, available, and that was Dmitry Orlov, and signed him to a big deal, over $7 million a year. So Orlov is definitely going to add significant capability to the blue line. And of course, the big move to get Tony DeAngelo. Kind of an interesting story. The Canes had been looking at DeAngelo, and it became very clear that Philadelphia was not going to keep Tony. He was in a situation where things just didn't go well for him last year for the most part, and so he was going to be a player that was going to be available. And the Hurricanes, because of their success with Tony 2 years ago, working alongside Jacob Slavin, really felt he could help, in particular on the power play. So they put together a deal with the Flyers and offered up a prospect, Massimo Rizzo, and a draft pick, and made a deal to pick up Tony. And the idea was that the Flyers would hold some of Tony's salary, half of it, $2.5 million. Well, as it turns out, the NHL did not allow the deal, so that came off the table. And there were a lot of questions as the days went on if the Canes were actually going to pick up Tony in the end. Well, as it turns out, they still had something up their sleeve and worked out a new deal with the Flyers. The Flyers bought Tony's contract out, were able to then free him up as a free agent, and the Canes ultimately signed Tony for about $1.7 million. So a better deal for the Canes to get Tony. And interestingly enough, the Canes held true on a deal to the Flyers. They actually acquired the rights to David Kasha, the brother of Andre Kasha, who had been with the Canes last year, and Kasha is actually going to be playing in Europe this year. And they gave up Massimo Rizzo and a draft pick. So the deal ultimately happened as it should have, and the Canes got their man, and the Flyers got their prospect. Anyway, all of that good stuff to say that Tony's back with the Hurricanes, and I think he's going to add a lot. He's a guy that on the power play is as good as it gets, and he really thrived with the Hurricanes. I thought he played extremely well for the Canes, and of course, if he's sitting on that third pairing alongside Dmitry Orlov, he's going to be sheltered, so they won't have to worry about any concerns around Tony's defensive game. He's going to be able to do what he does best. So that's really exciting, and we'll see how that plays out. And I know to date in camp, Tony has been on the number one power play unit, and not surprisingly, he's going to be quarterbacking that for sure. Now, so Tony's there, Orlov's there. What about Jalen Chatfield? Chatfield last year, to me, was a bit of a revelation. Chatfield came in, and it was first full season with the Hurricanes. He had been picked up from as a free agent from Vancouver the year before, and he came in and started off very strong for the Hurricanes. And of course, a player that can skate extremely well. He's very strong in his own zone. He's a smart player. He makes a lot of good things happen on the ice. And as the season progressed, I really saw more confidence in his offensive game. So by season's end, Chatfield really was a complete player for the Hurricanes on their blue line, and a good one. He actually stepped in for Jacob Slavin for a period of time, did not look out of place on the number one pairing with Brent Burns at all, and I thought he played extremely well. So where does Jalen go? He should be playing for sure. And the other consideration with Jalen Chatfield is he's on a very team-friendly contract right now. So they definitely want to play him, and also I think they can lock him up long-term in another team-friendly contract. So this would be a situation that would be great for the Hurricanes because, they're going to have some of those bigger contracts they're going to have to deal with in the coming years. So this is an opportunity for them to get a player that's an excellent player, and I think at a very fair rate. So that to be determined. But Chatfield for sure has to be in the mix, and you have to think that the Canes are believing that injuries could come to play as they have in the past, and Jalen will get his share of ice time. The other point to this, of course, was that earlier in the summer there were a lot of rumors of possible deals with Canes defensemen, in particular Brett Pesce. The rumor mill was going crazy with potential moves for Pesce. And of course, as he had not signed his a new contract with the Hurricanes, an extension, these are the rumors that start to happen. Of course, also similarly to some extent with Brady Shea. Both of those guys on their final deal, and they would be unrestricted free agents in the summer. I think the Canes would love to get both of them locked up, and those conversations are going to happen through the season. But as people looked at the opportunity for Canes defensemen to leave, it seemed to make more sense with the moves they were making. Now, they are loaded, and I don't think any of these defensemen are going to go. So, you've got 6 outstanding defensemen, you've got a great 7th defenseman, and actually you've got some other guys too. You know, they signed Caleb Jones earlier this summer. That was an interesting signing. He's a left shot defenseman, which is good. Jones brings, again, good pedigree to the NHL. His brother Seth, a great player with Chicago. Caleb had played alongside Seth the last couple of years with the Blackhawks, and of course he was an Edmonton Oilers draft pick previously. Jones is a good, solid player. He likes to play hard. He likes to hit people on the boards. He likes to get in the play. He's a good skater. He can move the puck. He's got a good shot. I mean, he's a good all-around defenseman. And as a 5'6", no concerns with Caleb Jones. But, again, no place for him right now in the Hurricanes. I think he'll stay around. I don't see him going on waivers or leaving the Canes. I think he will be continuing with the Hurricanes for the foreseeable future. The other guy is Dylan Coghlan. Of course, Coghlan came in the deal that the Canes made with the Golden Knights last year to get Max Pacioretty. That was a deal that the Canes really were excited about. Patches, of course, was going to be that big scorer that the Canes needed to put them over the top. And, of course, that did not come to fruition because of the injuries that Pacioretty suffered last year. Coghlan, however, did stay healthy for the whole year and did contribute at different times. Coghlan is an offense-first defenseman. He's got a great shot and of course, can move the puck smartly in his offensive zone. He's done some power play time, and generally, when he's in the O zone, he is very, very effective. The challenge with Coghlan, of course, is the defensive zone. It's a work in progress for him, and the Canes felt like he did have potential. He, in fact, signed him to an extension this year. So, Coghlan sits there. He's way down in the depth chart now, and I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen here, but my guess would be that Coghlan will go on waivers and will probably be picked up by another team. Now, if that happens, that's not a bad situation for the Hurricanes. They would pick up almost $1 million in cap space, and I think that's something they could put to work in maybe adding that additional forward that we talked about earlier. So, lots to be discussed on the blue line. Of course, anytime you bring in a Tony DeAngelo, you've got lots of interest and excitement around the Canes. And of course, Dmitry Orlov adds a whole new dimension to the Hurricanes. He plays a very stout game on the blue line. He likes to hit people. You see a number of his open ice hits frequently in the videos, and he really lays it on. And he can move the puck and he can shoot it. So he's a great addition. This Canes team is starting to look very, very strong. And I think the blue line, they are among the elite. So we've got decisions with the PTOs, we've got decisions with the AHLers, and we've got decisions on the blue line all coming up, and it's all going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So let's stay tuned and see how it plays out. Again, thanks for joining. Please subscribe. Any comments, happy to see them down below. And again, until next time, this is Tom Ray right here on stormTRacker.